Conflicting feelings battled in my mind. On one hand, I was shattered by the betrayal, but on the other, I was incredibly curious and even aroused to watch her. Seeing her in such an ecstatic and carefree state evoked in me a feeling I couldn't fully understand. Perhaps it was a sense of rekindled passion or a desire to be the one who brings her such pleasure, even if I wasn't the only one. Each of their touches, each look they shared, was filled with the tenderness and passion I thought we had lost forever, and at the same time, watching this, I began to understand that my feelings for Lucy hadn't died. They were forgotten and locked away deep inside, under the weight of everyday life and routine. Seeing her like this, in full passion and vivacity, reawakened in me a desire I hadn't felt for many years. My name is Elias, and I live in a place where every sunset paints the sky in incredible colors, in a small American town. Here, among these tranquil streets and old maples, I met her, Lucy. It happened many years ago, during my carefree college days, when every new day seemed like a page from an unreal fairy tale. That night, when I first saw Lucy, everything was imbued with a spirit of freedom and carefreeness. A noisy party at a classmate's place was in full swing. Music, laughter, twinkling lights of garlands, and a faint smell of alcohol in the air. I stood at the threshold, immersing myself in the atmosphere of unrestrained fun, and then my gaze fell on her. She was laughing, and in her eyes played something incomprehensibly attractive, shrouded in the soft light of the lamps. Lucy's hair, red like the flame of an autumn bonfire, cascaded freely over her shoulders. She moved with ease and grace, as if floating among people, not touching the ground. Her laughter was a melody that was impossible to ignore, and her smile was magic, altering the world around. At that moment, I felt my heart stop and then start again, but now in rhythm with her movements. I don't remember how I covered the distance between us, how I found the words for the first phrase. I only remember her surprised look, the sparkles of mirth in her eyes, and how she lightly touched my hand, accepting the drink I offered. I spent the entire evening in her company, listening to each of her words, absorbed by this sudden and inexplicable feeling. The wedding with Lucy was exactly as I had dreamed since childhood, although I didn't realize it until that moment. We chose an old church on the outskirts of the town, with stained glass windows that played with light, creating a halo around her as she walked down the aisle. Her dress was simple yet elegant, with a light train that followed her like a cloud. As she approached me, I felt my heart fill with warmth and happiness, as if I had found something priceless that I hadn't even been looking for. The first years of our life together were filled with joy and laughter. We often walked through the same streets where we first met, celebrated each anniversary at our favorite cafe, where we had our first lunch together. Her laughter was still a melody to my ears, and her smile continued to make my heart beat faster. But over time, as often happens, life began to introduce its adjustments. Work, career, daily cares, and responsibilities started to take more and more of our time and energy. Our evenings became quieter, and although we still loved each other, the passion and excitement of the early days gradually gave way to the calm flow of family life. I noticed how Lucy sometimes sighed, looking out the window, and I felt that I, too, missed those carefree days of our youth. From time to time, we tried to spice up our life with little adventures, but it wasn't the same. Missing was the spark that shone in her eyes when we first met, the smile she gave me when we sat in the cafe under the rain. We both felt that we had changed, and our feelings had also undergone changes. I began to think about where we were heading and what lay ahead for us. Was this a natural evolution of the relationship, or had we lost something important along the way? I caught myself missing Lucy, even though she was right beside me, and it scared me. I understood that something had to change, but I didn't know where to start. It's strange and bitter to realize that each day our intimate life with Lucy was becoming more distant and cold. What used to be passionate and inevitable had turned into a rare and obligatory act. I felt exhausted after long workdays, often just wanting to collapse into bed and forget everything in sleep. But it wasn't just fatigue to blame. Every time Lucy said she wasn't in the mood or was too tired, disappointment accumulated inside me. I was angry not only at her but at myself for not being able to arouse desire in her like before. This issue became a topic of our increasingly frequent arguments that seemed to arise out of nowhere. Sometimes I lay beside her, trying to understand the root of our problems, to return to the times when every touch sought a response, when every glance promised tenderness and passion, seemed impossible. I feared we would lose what had initially bound us. I feared we were no longer who we used to be and could never regain our former closeness. The arguments exacerbated the situation. Every time I tried to bring up this topic, Lucy dismissed it, saying these were temporary difficulties and everything would work out. But deep down, I felt it wasn't true. She became more withdrawn and even indifferent. In those moments, it felt like an insurmountable wall had risen between us, and I didn't know how to tear it down. This issue began to poison all aspects of our life. We talked less, laughed less. Even shared moments together now seemed more like a routine than a pleasure. I noticed that both of us were increasingly looking for excuses to leave the house, to immerse ourselves in work or meetings with friends, just to avoid confronting this tension within our walls. As I left the office earlier than usual, various thoughts about my future with Lucy swirled in my head. For the first time in a long time, I felt a spark of hope that we could change something. Arriving home, I immediately noticed something was off. The porch light was on, while Lucy was supposed to be at work. An inner voice warned me something was wrong, and instead of entering, I inexplicably moved towards the window. My heart pounded wildly as I crept up and cautiously looked inside through the curtains, and then my world collapsed. There on the bed, in an embrace, lay Lucy and my friend. They were naked, in the most intimate and close embrace. I froze in place, lost and shocked. Time seemed to slow down. Everything in my head screamed in despair and betrayal. Outside the window, where time seemed to stand still, I stood, petrified by shock and despair. My heart pounded in unison with every movement I saw before me. Anger and betrayal initially engulfed me like flames seizing dry grass. But the longer I watched, the more my feelings began to change. Lucy, my wife, was as passionate and lively as she was in the early days of our acquaintance. Her touches to another man were gentle and caring. Each of their movements was full of passion and desire, which I hadn't seen in her for many years. Her eyes sparkled, and her smile was so genuine and joyful. Their kisses were long and passionate, as if trying to capture this moment forever. Conflicting feelings battled in my mind. On one hand, I was shattered by the betrayal, but on the other, I was incredibly curious and even aroused to watch her. Seeing her in such an ecstatic and carefree state evoked in me a feeling I couldn't fully understand. Perhaps it was a sense of rekindled passion or a desire to be the one who brings her such pleasure, even if I wasn't the only one. Each of their touches, each look they shared, was filled with the tenderness and passion I thought we had lost forever, and at the same time, watching this, I began to understand that my feelings for Lucy hadn't died. They were forgotten and locked away deep inside, under the weight of everyday life and routine. Seeing her like this, in full passion and vivacity, reawakened in me a desire I hadn't felt for many years. The cool air outside the window contrasted with the warmth and passion I observed through the glass. I couldn't tear myself away from this scene. In every movement, every look, every touch between my wife and my friend, there was something mesmerizing, making my heart race. Seeing Lucy in such a liberated and passionate state suddenly ignited in me a desire, not just to watch, but to be part of it. I wanted to join them, to merge in a single burst of passion, forgetting everything in the world. It was so unexpected and strange for me to desire participating in what seemed like betrayal just a short while ago. I continued to watch until they reached their climax, united in one passion. In each of their touches, in each of their sighs, I felt my own desire growing, as if awakening from a long sleep. I imagined myself beside them, wrapped in the same sensations, immersed in the same whirlwind of emotions. When they finished, I slowly backed away from the window. I felt as if I was in a fog, where reality and fantasies intertwined. I knew I needed time to make sense of it all, to understand my feelings and desires. Deciding that Lucy shouldn't know I had seen everything, I silently moved away from the house and headed out to the street. Walking through the autumn city was odd. My thoughts wandered between images of what I had just witnessed and questions about the future, about our relationship, about my own desires. I knew I needed time to think it all over, to understand how exactly I should act. That evening, wandering through the autumn streets, my thoughts were full of contradictions. However, one thing was clear. I didn't want to destroy our relationship by exposing Lucy. The passion I had observed through the window had left an unexpected desire in my heart to witness their secret meetings. So I decided to install a hidden camera in the house. I wanted to see them together, to feel the same intensity of emotions I had experienced while standing at the window. Every whisper, every look, every passionate kiss stirred up a storm of conflicting feelings in me, ranging from outrage to a strange, burgeoning attraction. My desire to watch, secretly and unobserved, grew stronger with each passing day. Don't miss the next video, where I'll continue this gripping story. You'll find out how my secret observations evolved, what happened when I first opened up to my wife, and the unexpected turns our relationship took. Each new chapter of this story is filled with revelations and experiments. Subscribe to the channel and like the video to make sure you don't miss a single moment. Your support helps me to be more candid and share the most intriguing parts of my life. See you in the next video.